Today I thought I'd give you guys kind of a buying guide between two lenses that a lot of people are struggling with the decision over. And that was me not too long ago, and they are of course the Sony 100-400 G Master and the newer 200-600. Both these lenses are absolutely phenomenal, and I went through the painstaking work of researching every single little tiny thing you could imagine before I made my choice. So I've compiled it into a video for you here today to hopefully take the guesswork out of you buying it. I'm going to go through everything that's relevant to me as well as what I think is relevant to most people, so that by the time this video is done you should have an easy and clear idea about which one you're going to go with. Let's get started. So we're jumping right in. We're going to be comparing today and ripping apart the Sony 100-400 G Master and the 200-600. There's a lot of things that are very similar in these lenses, and there are a few things that are quite different. So why don't I tell you who I am first, so you guys actually know and understand why I think I'm probably a little bit qualified at least to give you guys this advice. My name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials here on YouTube, and I'm also a professional accredited nature photographer. I love nature, everything to do with it, from birds to bees to bears and everything in between, and I've spent many years photographing these amazing creatures. When it comes to Sony, choosing between one of these two was not an easy choice. And again, we're gonna break it down hopefully easily and quickly for you here today, so that by the time this is over, you guys are gonna be like, boom, that's the one for me. And I really hope I can do that for you. If you do end up liking this, if it does help you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, but let's dive in. Okay, so let's get at it. And the first thing we're gonna tackle is size. Size can play a huge role in your decision between two lenses, but size in this case is a little bit deceiving. At first glance, there's a huge difference in the length of these two, but the 100-400 G Master is the only one that extends as it zooms. It's still 1.5 inches shorter at full extension, and is definitely easier to carry and transport, but it's worth a mention. The G Master is also about 1.6 pounds lighter, which is once again significant when traveling and hand-holding for any length of time. It's also worth mentioning that the width of these is also quite significantly different. The G Master has 77mm filter threads, where the 200-600 has an incredibly big 95mm filter threads. And right before we dive into some major relevant spec differences, there's a few things that you should ask yourself. Okay guys, so the first thing that you should ask yourself, what am I going to be shooting? And that might sound a little bit self-explanatory, but let's make it really easy for you. Are you a birder? Do you love birds? Are you absolutely obsessed with birds and that's all you're gonna be shooting with this thing, and you need as much reach as possible, maybe even a teleconverter? Well, go with the 200-600. If you absolutely need the most reach you can possibly get, that's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, there are a little bit of downsides to it, and we will get into that, but for the most part, if you're into birds, if you want the longest reach possible, and that's exactly what you need and want, stop watching this video, go buy it. So if you don't just shoot birds, if you love to shoot other wildlife, as well as sports and landscapes and everything else, well, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So now let's compare some relevant specs, and sometimes it's the little things that make all the difference. So obviously they're both E-mount, and one of the drastic differences is of course the focal length. 100-400 versus 200-600. And shooting in crop mode or using an APS-C camera, you're looking at a 150-600 or a 300-900. And of course the longer reach sounds ideal, but remember that the longer it is, the harder it is to handhold. As well, you're going to have to use faster shutter speeds and inevitably higher ISO. Let's have a look at the focal lengths in real life so you can see what we're talking about. Here's the minimum focal length between these two lenses, 100 and 200, and you can really see just how dramatic of a difference it is. Here they are side by side. And here's a look at the maximum between the two, 400 and 600. And once again side by side. And here's what the minimum focus distance looks like if you're using it in crop mode or on an APS-C camera. Here they are side by side. And here's the maximum. Also consider that in today's day and age, we've got cameras like the A7R III and R4 now, and the R4 specifically in crop mode shoots 28 megapixel pictures. So basically, that 100-400 is going to become a 150-600, which I was kind of going for, and that's my dream, but not everybody has that budget, or not everybody is really looking for that criteria, so keep that in mind as well. With the higher megapixel camera, with the 100-400, you're going to be able to crop in and really get that nice, crispy, beautiful resolution. Whereas the 200-600, if you're using a teleconverter and you're cropped right in and you're hand holding at 2800 millimeters, it's going to be really hard for you to get that really still, and it's going to be hard for you to keep that ISO down as well. So keep that in mind. Getting back to our specs, they both have fantastic autofocus systems, both utilizing Sony's direct drive SSM or linear focus motors, and they've both been designed with the A9 in mind, so autofocus isn't going to be an issue. Next, let's address the aperture difference. On the wide side, the 100-400 is 2/3 of a stop faster, but when you're zoomed in all the way, it's only going to be 1/3 of a stop difference, the difference between f5.6 and f6.3 for the 200-600. And if you do photograph a lot of wildlife or sports, you know that every little bit counts. But in the scope of things, there's not a huge difference. Next, the amount of aperture blades are generous, and both lenses can produce decent bokeh, but don't expect anything like a 2.8. The next one is a big one for me, and that's minimum focus distance. All three of these photos were taken well under the 200-600's minimum focus distance of almost 8 feet. One of the amazing things about the G Master is that its minimum focus distance is only 3.2 feet, which is absolutely incredible, allowing you to get a lot more versatile shots as you get up nice and close to your subjects. And unfortunately, that just has to do with the engineering capabilities when you get into these huge telephoto lenses. And that just under 8 feet isn't actually that bad, considering some 150-600s have 9 feet and over. Something to think about. Of course, they're both image stabilized, and they both work great. The newer 200-600 has 3 modes, where the older G Master only has 2, and that's really the only main difference. No deal breakers here. We touched briefly earlier on the zoom systems. The 200-600 is internally zooming, which is really nice, but it's also an incredible short throw, which is just fantastic. This is going to help to acquire focus a lot faster, where the 100-400 is going to take a little bit more effort to get from one end of the zoom range to the other. Both lenses are designed for and are compatible with Sony's 1.4 and 2x teleconverters. And for pixel peepers, the 100-400 with a 1.4x teleconverter is not going to be quite as sharp as the 200-600 at 600, and that's just the nature of the beast. You're adding glass, and that's what you can expect. But we're splitting hairs. And finally, when it comes to price, yeah, you guessed the G Master is more expensive. Of course it is. It's about $500 more. And if you did want to pick up a teleconverter for either one of these lenses, you're going to be paying about $550 US for the 1.4 or the 2. So which one's better? Well, that's a hard question, and you're going to have to be the one to answer that. I'd say that the G Master, from what I've seen, is just a tiny bit sharper all around than the 200-600, and really that's not surprising. I think it's also going to resolve a little bit better, and that's just to do with the quality of glass. Both of these lenses are extraordinary pieces of equipment, and neither of them are going to let you down. So what did I end up going with? Well, if you're a subscriber, you already know this, but I went with something that could fit in this little bag, which I like to take around every single day, a little day bag. And that was, of course, the 100-400. And for me, I love this thing, and you really can't beat the size of it. The size and the weight is just absolutely incredible. Sure, it does extend when you zoom, but for carrying it around, for portability and whatnot, you just can't beat it. It's sharp from literally every aperture in every focal length. It's pretty much my dream lens. And because of that minimum focus distance, it's just so versatile for me. I love being able to shoot whatever, whenever, and actually having that amazing ability to not really miss something. So of course, everybody has different needs as well as shooting style. So ask yourself, what's most important? What do I love to shoot the most? What's gonna be more versatile for me? And hopefully everything that you've seen so far is gonna start to paint a picture in your mind about which one's gonna be best for you. So to make sure this video is not an hour, I can't go into every single detail between these two lenses, and if you are interested and want to know more about one specifically, check out my full in-depth review on each. And as promised, and like always, here's my personal pros and cons for these two lenses. So wrapping up, either of these lenses are going to be fantastic and they're going to serve you well, whatever you decide. But ultimately, it's going to be up to you to figure out which one's going to serve you better. And I really hope you liked this video. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Drop your questions and comments down below. If you're ready to buy one of these lenses, if you want to pick one of them up, I will drop affiliate links down there for you as well. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.